HBO's Boardwalk Empire is a period gangster drama following fictional Atlantic City political giant Nucky Thompson, played by Steve Buscemi. The show is set during the prohibition era of the 1920s and features many real-life famous and infamous individuals associated with the era, such as Charlie Luciano, Al Capone, Johnny Torrio, J. Edgar Hoover, and Meyer Lansky. One such character is Arnold Rothstein, the American Jewish racketeer and businessman, thought to be a kingpin of the Jewish mob and mentor to future crime bosses, such as Luciano, Lansky, and Frank Costello. Rothstein is played by Stuhlbarg in Boardwalk Empire, an actor who put so much thought and research into his role that the writers of Boardwalk Empire came to find that he knew more about the real-life Rothstein than they did, and they subsequently sought his advice on writing the character. Arnold Rothstein is a recurring character in Boardwalk Empire. He is cold, calculating, with a gentlemanly, polite air about him, but a sinister aroma that he is playing chess in his head with you and is already 3 steps ahead. As Gyp Rossetti might put it, he's a smug midget who creeps around like a fucking dentist. He is something of the main antagonist of Season 1 and starts off as the most powerful gangster in the series. In fact, it is actually his illegitimate workings, such as his sports fixings, which brings Agent Van Alden to Atlantic City and brings the heat onto Nucky Thompson, kickstarting some major storylines. Rothstein goes on to continue being a major player in this series, appearing in 48 of the 56 episodes. Now, Boardwalk Empire covers many historical events, while spicing things up with a bit of embellishment. The show covers events in the 1920s during its first 4 seasons, but for its final season, it jumped almost 10 years to 1931. The reasons for Boardwalk Empire being cut so short is a video for another day, but this decision is considered one of the most controversial of the series, with the bizarre time jump considered necessary by show creator Terence Winter to properly close out the show by showing the end of Prohibition, or at least while it was on its way out. However, one of the byproducts of this decision was that fans were robbed of potentially classic moments from Boardwalk Empire, things that happened in real life, such as the 1929 Atlantic City Conference, the first major gathering of organized crime figures in the United States, which you would imagine would be one of the most memorable segments of the show, as it would have put almost all of the principal crime figures of Boardwalk Empire in the same scene. And Terence Winter has gone on record highlighting how excited he was to show it and how important the conference was, before obviously the show was cut to only 5 seasons. The financial crash of 1929 is also missed, and the fall of Al Capone feels rushed and anticlimactic, seeing as though it took him several seasons to establish himself as a powerhouse, and the St. Valentine's Day massacre is never shown. But perhaps the most frustrating thing about Season 5, the most glaring omission, is the absence of Arnold Rothstein, who, after being such a major player and performed brilliantly by Stuhlbarg, just ups and disappears. It's a decision even more mind-boggling when you consider that Season 4 appears to set up Rothstein with a major arc for Season 5. Boardwalk Empire has its fair share of creative decisions which have annoyed fans, such as Jimmy Darmody being killed off at the end of Season 2, the reasons for which I have detailed in a previous video, but for me, nothing represents and symbolizes my issues with Boardwalk Empire more than the disappearance of Arnold Rothstein. I always had a vibe about Boardwalk, as good as it was, that it never reached its full potential, and it felt like it was constantly building to something, but that something never came, what with the show being cancelled. And with Rothstein feeling the heat himself for the first time in the show in a serious manner, his gambling issues becoming more apparent, you get the idea that something was really building with this character, but then the rug was pulled from beneath our feet. Of course, the real-life Arnold Rothstein was already dead by the time the events of Season 5 take place, and evidently the showrunners were unable to find a way to squeeze a conclusion to Rothstein's story into the show, via a flashback or something, and adding him into the events of Season 5 would do a disservice to the real history. But the word disservice comes to mind for the way such a principal character is treated, and an actor like Stuhlbarg who put so much into the role. A brief throwaway line is said in Season 5 to let us know that he died, and that's it. Interestingly, Stuhlbarg himself has commented on Rothstein not appearing in Season 5 and the mysterious circumstances surrounding the real-life Rothstein's death, saying, "Historically, you can look it up, but he got very much in debt at that time in his life and owed a lot of money to some dangerous people. The last thing we knew of him historically was that he was hanging out at his usual spot, making deals with people, and got a phone call there saying that there was a card game. This is what I've been told, or what I've read in the biographies about him. So he went to his room to play cards to sort of perhaps win back the money that he owed to people, and he emerged from the room with a bullet hole through his stomach, and this was at the Park Central Hotel in New York, which is still there, and he found himself out on the pavement out there, caught a cab, and was taken to a hospital. Was in a hospital for a couple of days and died from complications from that gunshot wound, not ever giving up who it was that shot him. A lot of people were speculating, but yeah, he sort of lived by the code at that time, which was, you don't tell. He doesn't seem to be bitter at the fact that he was left out of the final season and Boardwalk Empire never covered his character's death, saying, "They had to act fast and they had a lot of ground to cover. It was amazing that we all got as much coverage as we did, considering how many characters they were juggling. I had so much fun doing this show and I had no regrets. And yeah, sure, it would have been fun to have shown it, but I thought what they came up with was very cool, as it was. I think if they could have, they would have shown it, but they didn't have the time." Interestingly, as mentioned by Stuhlbarg, Rothstein was shot during a meeting or a card game, but the full circumstances of his death are not known, especially the key question, who shot him? It is thought that the shooting may have been linked to debts Rothstein owed from a 3-day high-stakes poker game, which Rothstein walked away with $320,000 out of pocket, around $5 million in today's money, a game which occurred around 2 months before Rothstein was shot. It is alleged that Rothstein claimed the game was fixed and refused to pay, leading to his shooting, although on his deathbed he refused to give up the shooter, allegedly telling the police, "You stick to your trade, I'll stick to mine." There have been numerous suspects for Rothstein's murder, though the mystery has never been solved, and it would have been interesting to see how Boardwalk Empire would have played it had they been able to showcase the shooting. I mean, there is a scene where he loses money and gets frustrated in a card game, and perhaps if the showrunners knew that Boardwalk Empire would have been cut to 5 seasons when this scene was filmed, maybe they would have converted it to a death scene. Who knows? So what do you make of Arnold Rothstein being killed off screen? Did it annoy you as much as it did me? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.